rephrase that. Only in the bottom tax bracket. Because remember, yeah. It's not the same tax brackets anymore. I mean, it's a lot simpler, or I mean, not simpler. It's a lot more complicated, but there's fewer brackets, and it's lower taxes on the very wealthy.
Aren't there separate ones now for like when you make up stock kind of thing?
Yeah, those are called capital gains, and they existed then, but now it's a big tax break. It's a huge tax break. Not less big. And not as many people get it. Regulation.
Taxing or what you make off of.
Oh, yeah. They tax you significantly more for work than they do for speculation. And that's all you need to know. All right. All right, so we got the Wealth Tax Act. Did we mention the Wagner Act? No. All right. In fact, but Cody did bring up a good point, and Cody Taylor asked me questions about taxes and about capital gains, or the money you make off stock and investments. And this is true today. You are taxed significantly more for work than you are for speculation. You get less tax for speculation. That's all you need to know about who runs the country. It's not the workers, it's the what? Speculators. Those on Wall Street bankers run the country. And it's a great thing. Because they're watching. See, they got it now double. All right. You don't know what that is? Well, they record everything you do. Does anybody know what that is over there?
It's the Nazi rep rights.
In 1947, the United States created a national security agency. That's all I'm going to say. No, it's the motion sensor. And it's so big, it's kind of funny how big it is. It's massive. I'm sure they got a good deal.
But I mean, like, was it worth it?
Huh?
What does it sense? What does it sense for?
If there's motion, if there's no motion after a certain period of time, the lights shut off.
But I mean,
So is that a Taylor?
A little bit. All right. I mean, let's say I walk out here and forget to turn off my lights. Then it will do it. But usually what happens is I'm sitting at my desk working, and the motion sensor doesn't pick me up, and so the light goes off when I'm working, so I have to stand up and go. And then the light comes on. It's really annoying.
There's some kid in the door.
But occasionally I can throw stuff at it, so I'll throw it. Okay. All right, so number 3, the Wagner Act. And the Wagner Act, it's also called the National Labor Relations Act, but it created the National Labor Relations Board, or the NLRB. The National Labor Relations Board. Would you rather be in blue or green pen? Blue. Blue, green, both? Both.
every other letter.
That would save time. So, the National Labor Relations Board. And what the big thing the Wagner Act did is, it did what the NRA started. It said that companies must recognize labor unions if a majority of the workers want it. So if over 50% of the workers want it at a company, then the company must recognize the union. In fact, the law reads 1 over 50%. That's just simply the way the law is written. So the majority. And then if they must recognize it, and if that happens, then the union can collectively bargain for all the workers there, for all of them.
Why does it have to be 50%? Why can't it just be like 20 guys want to be a union?
Yeah, that's a good question. And this was essentially a compromise. Basically what it was is, the argument was, well, not if the majority doesn't want to be in a union, can they still negotiate for it? And so the compromise was, okay, if we got over half, then they can negotiate a contract for all the workers, so not just a small group.
If it's less than that, you can negotiate for you, but you couldn't negotiate for the whole thing.
Well, they were worried, they thought it would be too complex. How could you negotiate for the majority of workers who don't want the union? And that's what the opponents said, because they didn't want unions. And so the compromise was, okay, if you get 50%, then you can have the union. And they also said you can't fire a worker who wants to start a union. You can't fire a worker who wants to start a union. You can't intimidate workers from not starting a union, that sort of stuff. And if it does happen, you can take your complaint to the National Labor Relations Board. And it's like any regulatory agency, you know, the 3 members of National Regulation or National Labor Relations Board. They're chosen by the president. And if the president is relatively pro-union, then they're going to be very active. If they're anti-union, they're not going to be very active at all. And companies can still intimidate. It's still hard. It's really hard to prove that you were fired because you weren't a good worker or that you were trying to start a union. And there's still a lot of gray area. For the most part, the United States government was pretty, or at least relatively pro-union until 1981. I mean, you could just see that date, boom, and then anti-union. And ever since then, union membership has dropped dramatically in the United States. But once this law passed, union membership exploded. It passed in 35, 36 to 40, union membership tripled. And by the end of the 1940s, by the end of World War II, and by 1949, almost 40% of all workers were in a union. And the big thing about unions is that unions not only raise wages of people in the union, the threat of a union raises wages for people outside the union. Because companies don't want a union, because unions can negotiate through collective bargaining control. Now, I'm an example of that, because I have certain control over my workplace because of my union. It's very true. Certain things I don't have to do because we negotiated. And speaking about teachers, so let's go to the South, where there's very few teaching unions. Not only can they be fired at the drop of a hat for the most part, North Carolina is a good example, but also their pay's lower and they have no control. How many teachers? The percentage of population in the United States is about 9%. Yeah. Oh, there's been a corresponding drop in wages. I mean, unions raise wages. But also you can see if you're an employer, you don't want a union because you have more control and you can pay your workers less. So that's the Wagner Act. And once Roosevelt signed this bill, labor became the biggest supporter of Franklin Roosevelt. Franklin Roosevelt became the protector of workers' rights. And therefore, labor unions and union members into the late 1960s overwhelmingly voted for what political party?
Democrats.
Yeah, they were Democrats because of the liberal economic policy. It would be the Vietnam War, civil rights, and the social issues that would chip away at that coalition and also hurt unions in the late 60s. We'll get to that a little bit later on. Number 4, the WPA. The Works Progress Administration, the biggest of all the alphabet soup programs, the Works Progress Administration. The CWA, the PWA, the CCC, all of those programs did not hire enough workers to really put in a dent in unemployment, or for that matter, raise demand significantly. The WPA would be the biggest. It would hire tens of thousands of workers. And this would ripple throughout the economy. And there's one more very important thing about the WPA. The WPA, and it was written into the bylaws, no discrimination.
Based on anything, or?
Based upon race. And to a lesser degree based upon sex. Now it would have been seen as irrational to pay women the same as men. That didn't make any sense to people in 1935, except for a very radical few. Now you might say, wow, we're past that now. Well, no, of course not. Women don't make near what men make today. Today. You know what it is?
70%.
79 cents. So it's a little better than that.
Why does that happen exactly? I mean, I guess it's prejudice, but like.
There's a lot of reasons. Some are, we'll talk about when we get to the women. Let's save that. Because I will get to that more detail. I'm going to talk about the ERA. But there's lots of reasons. But no discrimination. there are a lot of reasons why African Americans started voting Democratic. It had been pretty split, the African Americans who could vote, getting around the grandfather's clause and all that. But it was split, because a lot of Democrats voted Republican, remember the party of Lincoln. But when the WPA said no discrimination, it was very clear, not that there wasn't discrimination, but at least it said it. African Americans started voting overwhelmingly toward the Democratic Party. 75, 80%. What is it today? It's about 95% of African Americans vote Democratic today. And the reason why is very simple. In 64, 65, Republicans came out against civil rights. They went out against equal rights. And when they went out against equal rights, very boldly, it's called the Southern Strategy. And the Democrats were the party for it. That was a switch. No, well before. Obama was a little boy when that happened.
What percentage of the population is
About 14. Back then, about 18. Now, nationwide, that doesn't look like a huge amount, but with the Electoral College in some states, it's big. So, the WPA. But to give you an idea what this thing made, just give you an idea, it would make 681,000 miles of roads over the next 3 years. You don't need to know the exact number, but just get roads. Roads. 125,000 buildings. Public buildings all over the country, including the courthouse here. Courthouses all over. Schools, libraries. I mean, this built all over. You go to the courthouse in Helena, and you have to kind of find it, but there is a little WPA engraving into the granite foundation. There are 8,000 parks. My favorite park in where I grew up in Miles City, Weibo Park, loved that park. When I was a little kid, that was a great park. And that was a WPA program. And I broke my nose in that park. Next. Yeah. Good times. Well, you see, this biker gang was attacking the orphanage. And I was running 7 babies out. No, I was playing basketball. Going up for a rebound. Bang into the pole.
Is that why you broke your leg too?
No, leg was landing playing basketball. I blew my knee football. I broke this finger baseball.
Wait, so
I broke this wrist. No, I did break that wrist.
your leg and your ankle at a separate time?
Yeah, that was separate. Oh,
So what happened? You shouldn't play sports.
Huh?
You shouldn't play sports.
No, I loved it. It hurts now. All right, but they built thousands of houses, thousands of homes or developments for the poor. They built over 10,000 bridges. Do you get the idea what's going on here? This was an incredible program. Almost every airport that was in existence by World War II was a WPA program, including LaGuardia Airport in New York. Well, I think it's awesome.
You like take off on the river?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's issues with it because it's around the river, but it's got the old, I love the 1930s style architecture, and I really think it's a cool building. But also dams. Dams everywhere. There's a big dam building program. I don't know why I put it on camera. Canyon Ferry, WPA. Almost all in the Missouri. Fort Peck, WPA. If you go along the Columbia, all those dams in the Columbia, WPA. Anyone been to Grand Coulee on the Columbia? Oh, that's a spectacular dam. I have mixed feelings about dams. I think there's a lot of problems with dams, but I'm still in awe. I'm in awe of a dam. What an engineering feat. Grand Coulee is the biggest in the continental United States. So amazing. Not bigger, but it's more famous. What dam on the Colorado? Hoover. Now, Hoover Dam was actually started with Hoover, but then they cut the funding. And then they brought it back, and of course, we're not going to call it after Hoover. It's going to be Boulder Dam. And then when Republicans took back control of Congress, they passed a law to make it Hoover Dam again. And now it's kind of stuck. Hoover Dam is probably one of the most famous. Has anyone been to Hoover? That's a cool dam. Grand Coulee's bigger, but Hoover in a way is more spectacular because of the desert. And there would not be Las Vegas without Hoover Dam. So maybe Hoover Dam was a mistake, but there was Las Vegas. Las Vegas was literally a stop on the Union Pacific Railroad. In fact, the Great Depression hit Nevada so hard, they decided, how are we going to get people here? Gambling.
And it
Yeah,
worked.
well, gambling and prostitution. That's true. That's how Nevada got its start, as being,
Already got the result.
yeah.
It was pretty successful.
Well, define successful. Have you been to Vegas?
You got people there.
Yeah.
True. Good point.
Huh?
No, they got people.
You know you can get around.
And they have huckleberries, but they can ship them in. All right, but then also provided federal funding for the arts. And this was a remarkable part of the WPA. Because during the Depression and bad economic times, art pretty much disappears. Because anything that's going to be relatively controversial, no one's going to buy it, it goes away. And so there were unemployed artists, musicians, actors, and this hired them. Not only to do artwork and some of these really cool posters for like national parks, etc., but also they did theater, they did, so they would pay actors who were out of work and set up theater, help fund movies, musicians. The great folk singer Woody Guthrie was hired to go write songs about dams along the Columbia River. Just to give you that, he loved it because he liked working. What's your question?
Why were controversial things not bought?
Well, the thing about it is, if you have a limited amount of money, it drops the cost. It drops the value of all art because it's an asset. And so the things that are kind of controversial, ones are the sole use of the lowest cost, will just fall off basically.
Did they fund?
No, they didn't need to fund that. Movies actually were doing pretty well in the Great Depression. Movies were a great escape. But, for example, Orson Welles, some of you might have heard of him, the great Orson Welles, he really got his start in theater, brilliant, brilliant artist, doing the Federal Arts Project, doing theater, and he did them in Harlem. And he did Macbeth with an all African-American cast. And that was shocking in 1938 when he did it. Orson Welles, and he knew he was shocking people. That was his way. He'd be best known for one of the, arguably the greatest movie of all time. And what is it?
Citizen Kane.
Dumb and Dumber. And yes, Citizen Kane. Last year we did a thing on special topics with Citizen Kane. That was really cool. Talk about the history. It's a good movie. Anyone seen it? It's a good movie. It's not what we're used to, but you have to, if you get yourself ready for it, oh God, it's good. He's also best known for, also really well known for causing a panic. What panic? Yeah, by broadcasting his version of War of the Worlds as a Martian invasion of the United States, 1938. Another good story.
Yeah, you does that.
You have to, yeah. Mr. Gray teaches sci-fi his second semester for his senior year, and he does a big unit on that because he loves Wells. And I really like Orson Welles, so we talk about it a lot. And I used to do it in special topics, but since he does it, I don't do the War of the World. But that's a good story. Yeah, people bought it. It was
Did he have any repercussions because of that?
a little bit. Oh, but the point is, the WPA changed things dramatically. The WPA got the economy moving. There's no doubt about it. Yes, the economy was growing during 1934, 1935. But with the WPA and Social Security, for a little bit later on, there was a big growth. Can you shut the lights real fast? I'm going to show a screen.
Show what?
I'm going to show a slide. Yeah, hit the lights, please.
Well, that's it.
Now, here's the gross domestic product in 1920 and 1940. And you can see it, the high in 1929, then the bottom was in 1932. But you notice the 32, the decline slowed, and then it grew all the way up to 36. I'll explain that drop in a second. You see the other line. That's called the trend line. A trend line, economies always grow. If the population grows, the economy should grow. And so there's a trend line. And that gives where the trend should be going. Because it's not going to be flat. Well, this one also shows industrial production. 33, 34 is still bad, and then once the WPA hit. Industrial production grew dramatically and got higher than what was in 1929. But the problem was this, unemployment. Unemployment dropped dramatically from 33 to 36. With the WPA, it went straight down. But you notice there are two lines. And this is something that, if people talk about the Great Depression, you can always tell what their point of view is for which line they use. The unadjusted unemployment line did not count workers in the WPA or the CWA-CCC, which makes no sense. They're employed and working. The adjusted is. The adjusted in 36 got down to 10%. If people are pro-New Deal, they say the adjusted. If they're anti-New Deal, they say, oh, unemployment didn't go down that much, and they use the unadjusted. They don't tell you which one. And so, by 1936, it looked like with the second New Deal, the country's coming out of the Depression. Did you notice the big rise? I'll explain that in 1 second. So, let's very quickly then talk about the election of 1936. Because Roosevelt, think about it. That's what everybody remembers. Times are much better. In 1936, Roosevelt is going to sweep through this election. In fact, it's a little bit shocking how well Roosevelt did, especially because a lot of people didn't predict it. Roosevelt would be, of course, the Democratic nominee. But unlike 32, he didn't have to go around saying, I'm not Hoover, vote for me. Now it's vote for the New Deal. And every Democrat in the country, what were they also saying when they were running for office? New Deal, FDR. In fact, Republicans really couldn't talk against the New Deal because it was so popular and they knew it. They nominated a relatively moderate governor from Kansas, a Hoover supporter named Alf Landon. And Alf Landon basically said this. Now, I know it's kind of sad. Alf Landon said, I don't want to get rid of the New Deal, but I'll do it better. We'll do it better. Do the New Deal better, which is actually a bad campaign policy. Why would you vote for somebody who you know doesn't really like the New Deal, or vote for the real thing? The guy who did it. But that's how popular the New Deal was. Gallup did one of their first ever political polls. Gallup still does polls. It's Gallup agency named after a guy named George Gallup. And they called people up and asked them who you're going to vote for. It took a few months, or it took a month to do this. So it was about a month for the election. And guess what the poll said? They called people on the phone. And who got 60% support? Who? Landon. Why?
Because they only call people out of a republic.
They only call people with
Just
phones.
people.
They don't call people with phones. A lot of people didn't have phones. And every one of them are going to vote for Roosevelt. Reader's Digest did a poll of their subscribers, and Alf Landon had 70%. FDR won the biggest landslide in political history up to that time.
In America or everywhere?
In American history.
What about Washington? I feel like that whole thing probably had a pretty solid.
Remember, Washington was unopposed. And Monroe was unopposed. And it's second when he won almost all. A huge victory. I mean, he won everywhere. And the Democrats swept almost every state.
How big, like, popular vote percentage-wise?
Almost 62%, which is unheard of in a presidential election. Because a lot of people, they'll just vote Republican or Democrat to vote Democrat. Now, Lyndon Johnson would have about the same thing in 64. Nixon would have almost the same thing in 72, and so would Reagan. But FDR's was unprecedented.
How much of the population was landed? Like, what percentage of the people?
He got about 36.
What about modern? What's
Typical, it's a lot closer. So Obama won a big victory in 2012, and he got about 52.5%, 53%. That's a big victory.
What's a close victory?
Bush in 2000.
What would he get?
Bush got about 49, and Gore got about 49.2. But Bush won the Electoral College. That's about as close as you can get.
Didn't he win the electoral college and recount Florida?
We'll talk about that later. All right, so here we go. Here we have this decline. Roosevelt got all the credit for it. Won this sweeping victory. He won a huge victory. Now just imagine you're Franklin Roosevelt. Oh, by the way, what did Roosevelt like to be called?
Rosie.
What do you like to be called?
President.
The boss. He liked the boss. Who else liked to be called the boss?
Wait, did they call him like, hey, the boss, or would they just say boss?
Boss.
No,
The boss. Who else liked to be called the boss? But he liked when guy would talk about, you have to go talk to the boss. He liked when they were, who else liked to be called boss? Joseph Stalin. Oh, another weird coincidence. Weird coincidence, Hitler and Roosevelt about the same time. Stalin and Roosevelt like to be called boss. Hard to find more polar opposites than them. It's kind of interesting. So, unemployment went up. The economy is going to go down. You know how Roosevelt felt? I'm pretty cool. Everybody voted for me. I can do anything I want. I have a mandate to do anything I want. And so he is going to make three horrific blunders. Blunder number one, the Supreme Court. Now, the Supreme Court was a thorn in its side. They had found many government actions unconstitutional. But the big ones they found unconstitutional were the NRA and the first AAA. Now, the NRA had pretty much proved to be a failure, but the AAA was a big hit. And Roosevelt was really worried, as he should be, they might find Social Security unconstitutional. Because the Constitution doesn't say Social Security. It has tax power, interstate commerce power, and general welfare, but doesn't say those words. Most of the members of the Supreme Court were appointed by the Republicans, and they were more inclined to be conservative in that view. So, Roosevelt decided, can't beat them, I'll make my own court. It's going to be called court packing. And it would allow Roosevelt to appoint up to 6 more justices, making a total of 15. You notice I said up to? The judge, what the law says is the president can appoint a judge for every justice that is 70 or older. The idea being they would be like an apprentice, because over 70, they are over 70. So the idea they might die or retire, so you need someone ready to take over. Now, of course, this was just garbage, because as luck would have it, I'm sure this was just a coincidence, 6 of the judges that are over 70 were also all conservatives. So he could appoint 6 allies, 6 liberals, thus getting a majority. I'm sure it just happened to be that way. His advisors and people in Congress, his allies said, don't do this. This looks bad. Dictators create their own courts. That looks like you're a dictator. Don't do this. But he thought he was invincible. And he pushed it in. And it failed miserably. Conservative Democrats who were cowed by Roosevelt's popularity voted with Republicans and smashed it. Conservative Democrats who didn't like the New Deal, didn't like that whole thing about allowing blacks to work, crushed it. And the thing is this, it had 2 effects, 2 big effects. The first one effect from this, ironically, the court was kind of like, ooh, Congress does have the power to change the court. And they would approve, they would find Social Security constitutional. Maybe they cowed him, also one guy resigned. Roosevelt was able to appoint a liberal justice, William O. Douglas, who would be at the Supreme Court in the 1970s. And it approved it. So maybe that did work. Yeah.
So it's attempted, yes.
Yeah. But everyone saw that. But the other thing was this, and this is why it's so important. He lost. Roosevelt finally lost. He's beatable. He's vulnerable. he can't touch us. Now, Roosevelt's going to make another mistake then. This one's dumb, too. So, there's going to be a midterm election in 38. And Roosevelt's like, all right, I'm going to punish all you guys who voted against me. Democratic candidates are chosen in primaries. Roosevelt campaigned in Democratic primaries against sitting congressmen who voted against him here. In Democratic primaries, he supported liberal. Now, when I mean liberal, I mean pro-New Deal. Now, people love Roosevelt. Democrats loved him. But still, politics, they're local. Politics are local. And it's like, yes, I love you as a president, but so-and-so was my congressman. I voted for him last time. Don't tell me I made a mistake in 36 or 32 or whenever the election was. It failed miserably. Every single conservative Democrat that Roosevelt supported, that Roosevelt opposed, won.
Is that number 2?
Yeah. So Roosevelt has just created a bunch of what? Is there someone at my door? Who's at my door? No one's at my door. You're making this all up. You people are out to get me.
You need to throw the pen out of rage.
Get in the cards room.
Yeah, let's go. 3 points. It's March Madness.
You guys are two. You guys are two. I got to do it when no one's ready for it. All right, so 3. It's called the Roosevelt recession. Now, this is something you don't want named after you. You don't want a recession named after you. You want the Partridge boom, not the Partridge bust. I know all of you want the Partridge boom, right? Vote for you, vote for me, wouldn't you? Oh yeah, definitely. That's why you look down. Here, as soon as I'm elected, it'll be camps. Just let you know. That's actually kind of scary, isn't it? Then we'll make camps. Re-education camps. All right. Roosevelt, write down, Roosevelt was worried about the deficit because deficits had gone up because of the WPA, the bad economy, and everything else. And Roosevelt decided the economy's in good shape. I know I went back in time again, but this is 1937. I just wanted to get 38 because it's tied to court packing. In 37, Roosevelt proposed massive cuts in all the programs, especially the WPA. Because he thought we don't need it anymore, the recession's over because of this. Because of that, unemployment dropping. Well, what happened? All of a sudden, WPA spending was cut by half. The people who were working didn't have a job. What happened?
If spending is cut by half, how can it be adjusted over 2%?
Yeah, it would cut by half, but it only lasted for about 6 months.
So if it's cut in half, shouldn't it jam?
Yeah, well, you can see it here. The number of government jobs wasn't as big as the jobs created because of the government jobs outside of government. That exploded. And what happened? Demand dropped. Businesses were not still confident enough to in their markets to start producing on their own, and recession. The GDP made another drop. Remember I told you, I'll explain that. Unemployment went up. The Roosevelt recession. A terrible mistake. And because of these 3 things, now you'll notice how it goes back down. Roosevelt was learning his lesson. They doubled the WPA. But he never recovered. Roosevelt had planned a 3rd New Deal. There was going to be a part 3. He had huge plans, and he called it a new Bill of Rights. He gave a great speech. Now, I mean great speech as, I'm not arguing whether or not you agree or disagree with the speech. I just mean a great speech because Roosevelt gave great speeches. Yeah.
What year was the Supreme Court and then the midterm election?
Supreme Court's 37, Roosevelt recession 37, the primary is 38. But I did the primary right after because it was directly related to court packing. And so, I'm not gonna go through everything. Got a couple Onion articles, broker state, grog drill. Okay, second Bill of Rights. Okay, don't write everything down, just say he proposed this. And this was gonna be the basis of the third New Deal. Everybody's gonna be guaranteed a job with high wages. And home. But let me add the three ones that two are on there, and one more. One thing Roosevelt really wanted, everybody would have a job, but also medical care. He wanted a national health care insurance that would be funded through Social Security. Healthcare was becoming far too expensive for most people to pay for, as it is today. That's why there has to be some kind of insurance. And they could do the math. They could do the math in the 1930s. Health insurance as a model doesn't work. If it was left on its own, it wouldn't work. It has to have massive supplements. If you know anything about the healthcare industry, that's huge. And that's what his plan was. We've got part of that, but not at all. Complete. And number 6, you know what his plan was? Free college. Free public education for everybody and free college. For everybody who is capable of going. Now I know what a lot of you are thinking. Thank goodness that didn't happen. Because it's important for you as a young adult to learn about the fun, the excitement of being in debt.
I don't feel like I'm going to
I'm sorry.
Is the argument against
Because it was a lot cheaper for me when I went to school. A lot. And it's out to get you. I'm sorry.
Is the argument against really reduced or free college just money?
It's a combination of money. It's also the social Darwinistic argument. It's also the trickle-down argument. If people don't have to pay for their education, they'll be less likely to take jobs they don't like, and therefore wages will go up. So you're going to cripple them with debt. And there's another big reason. People who aren't whites will get it. People who aren't whites will get education. People who aren't white will get medical care. I hear that, you think, oh, it can't be that. No, that's why we don't have universal health care. That's why. Because people who aren't white might get health care.
So did they not use like the argument of like it would raise taxes?
There's a little bit. There's a little bit, but the big thing, when it came right down to it, was
Is that still the argument today
for what?
for healthcare?
Now it's taxes, but also you should work. If you get healthcare, you should pay for it yourself. So it's the same thing.
But it's not.
So it did none of this happen. Roosevelt did not succeed in the second New Deal. Oh, one more thing he wanted: civil rights. He wanted civil rights. That did not happen. There'd only be 2 more things he got, which we had on one of them we had on the quiz. The last 2 major parts of the second New Deal would be the Fair Labor Standards Act. That'd be the Fair Labor Standards Act was huge, and it would pass the Supreme Court. The Fair Labor Standards Act. The FSLA, I'm sorry. Fair Labor Standards Act. And that would allow for 44, but eventually a 40-hour work week. 40-hour work week, minimum wage, and child labor laws. And all of these pass the constitutional muster. All of these are designed, but the biggie, they all raise wages, thus raising demand. And to this day, the more people who are more liberal economically think this is good. More conservative want to chip away at this. And they chipped away at the 40-hour work week quite effectively. Yeah.
When did overtime fall? When was overtime?
That's right here.
Right, but like.
Yeah, Fair Labor Standards Act is overtime. That's how they enforce it. Overtime started. That's when it started, 1938. Mm-hmm. And the other one is the second AA, or AAA, I'm sorry. The second AAA. Yes, Jane.
If we were going into 40-hour work week, and that's a bad thing, that's companies will not have, why do they not hire people 40 hours? Like, for minimum wage jobs, why do, like, they don't let people work over 30 hours? Okay.
Why don't they just hire?
Oh, yeah, part-time labor has a certain advantages, that's other reasons, but what they wanted is the ability to be flexible on it. They wanted, when there's a lot of demand, to work people 60 hours, and then work them 20. They didn't want to have 40-hour as a limit. But there's a reason they do,
Was it because you have to provide full-time benefits after?
a little bit, and that's pre-benefits. This is pre-benefit, right? And there's other reasons too. If you keep them part-time, you don't have to, there's no chance of promotion, so you keep them at that level.
Yeah, it's really interesting just to see how my schedule is just to, with these.
Yeah, and they know you're always going to be a part-time. So, John Maynard Keynes. I know all of you are thinking, finally, Keynes. Calm down. Calm down. God. John Maynard Keynes is everybody's favorite British economist. Right? Let me rephrase that. No, he's not that favorite by a lot of people. Keynes. John Maynard Keynes. So this is why my pins disappear. I set them over here and then I walk away. And then I throw them down the hall, or I set them around there, or they're in the teacher's lounge. There's a lot of pins in Mr. Furlick's office. I go and talk to him and leave a pin. All right, so John Maynard Keynes was a British economist. He was already internationally known when the Depression began. He spoke out very forcefully against the reparations. So this is going to lead to disastrous consequences for Germany after the Treaty of Versailles. He would be proven to be correct. And he came up with a solution for the Depression in 1930. But, yeah, it's English. Nobody listened to him. Well, they listened to parts of it. When Roosevelt proposed his cuts in 37, Keynes wrote him a letter and saying, you got to read my book. Do not do this. It will lead to a recession. And what did it do? It led to a recession. And after this, Roosevelt said, I like Keynes. And what Keynes said was, the problem is not supply, the problem's not a shift in the tides or something like that, some natural occurrence. The problem in the economy is simple. There's not enough demand. So what do you got to do? You got to bring demand up. It's not supply, it's demand. And the only way to get demand up is to get people with money to spend it. The problem is, companies aren't spending money. People are still reluctant to spend money. Either they want to save it or they don't have it. Banks are still reluctant to loan money because of the credit freeze. The economy is bad and nobody trusts anything. The future does not look bright. And so, what did they say? The government. What Keynes said, only government can step in. Because government does not have the restrictions that people do. Government debt is different than personal debt. And, as he made it clear with the gold standard being abandoned, government can print their own money, and people pay it. Government demands taxes in their own money. Government has something called an army. So they can go and enforce people to pay taxes. People don't have armies, so to speak. So, government should spend money. And what they should do is deficit spending. Because you don't want to tax more. Because that will pull money out of demand. Deficit spending. So he actually didn't approve, let me rephrase that. He really liked Roosevelt's taxes. But he said you should have done it when times were good. When times were good, it would have been a fantastic policy. Keynes. Government deficit spending. And that's how you do it. Now remember I drew the engine for trickle-down economics. Remember that was top, down. You remember that. So what is this going to be? Bottom up. So give yourself a little bit of room. I'm going to start it and I'll finish it on Monday. You start on the bottom with workers. Now this is generically workers. Workers are people who have to, most people, they work and use almost all their money to survive in the moment. Most people were like that then. Most people are like that today. And what the idea is, you get money in their hands because they will spend it. The wealthy don't necessarily need to spend. They just don't. I mean, just it's logic. Now, supply side would say they deserve it. So what we're talking about is government action to get money in their hands. What do we have? Union. Pro-union policy raises wages. That's why the Wagner Act is so important. That's why Roosevelt would incur unionism. Unions. Government provides unions. Next. Things like, remember I referred to it as a safety net. So things like unemployment insurance, which would be started out of Social Security. Welfare, like food stamps, which came out of the AAA. Also, Social Security. So even if people are too old to work, there's a cushion in demand. And other programs like this, but you get the idea? Next, programs like the WPA. Build stuff. Building stuff has a great advantage. If people need it, then it will multiply down the road. If you build roads and bridges, it will expand and help the rest of the economy. Airports, same deal. Next, government regulations. Regulations of the banks to control the bubble. Regulation of the stock market, so money doesn't all flow into stock markets to go to the rest of the economy. Regulation of trust. Regulation is a very important part about this. In fact, they would heavily regulate the New Deal. And aggressive action by the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve has got to have control over the money supply to create inflation. Get money in people's hands. What Keynes suggested is, you know what you could do? You could just go and take a bunch of coins, mint a bunch of $100 coins, just say this is worth $100, bury them at the bottom of a coal mine, and then just say, go at it. What's going to happen? People are going to start mining, they'll pay each other mine, they'll get the economy going, they'll get these coins, they'll spend it, boom, demand, economy going. Now that sounds a little facetious, but it's kind of true. Think about it. Oh yeah, he actually says that. A Keynesian economist by the name of Paul Krugman today said in 2009, you know what we ought to do? Say the aliens are going to attack. Then we start all these government programs to build for the aliens. That'll get people working and gone from there. We can just convince people the aliens are coming. I'll keep my eye out. My janitor's really pretty good at putting notes someplace safe. And so, yeah.
Mr. Harper's question, is this looking good so far? Can you understand it? What I'm
The better
doing
question
here
is,
so
can
far?
Bailey?
I was thinking about that. I was like, I'll have to borrow my notes, and like, no one can understand it.
Because Bailey, wasn't it Bailey?
Yeah, did you get Bailey's email?
Yeah, mono. Or Bailey. God. Don't get mono. That's good advice for everybody.
I'm so happy because, well, I'm not about that, but last week,
I'm going to tell her right now.
last week, she let me, or I usually like let her borrow my drinks and stuff, but all last week, whenever she would ask, I'd forgotten my water bottle. Or all this week.
I bet she was like, darn
all
it.
This week, I forgot my water bottle when she asked.
It would have been Typhoid Bailey. Typhoid Mary that's a real person now. Running Typhoid. I'm glad, poor Mary.
I have a request.
Poor Mary. Poor Mary and poor Bailey.
You need to shave your hair and eyebrows and get David Perry's look.
Yeah, I know. I'm with you.
And with the wig that starts here.
Yeah, it was awful. I'll show you a real picture of David Ferry, and it's not far from the truth. Kennedy assassination stuff.
Oh my god, all the people in this movie, like the guy from Men in Black, like Agent K, his hair is like white and curly, like white perm.
But that's the way Clay Shaw looked.
All of the people in that movie.
Oh, we should also talk about how to opt out of the smarter balance test.
Yeah.
Because not a single teacher has told us. Well,
I
I've
should
asked
be
this
entire junior class to do that too.
Well, actually, you shouldn't probably do that, but I don't know anything about it. I just know in other places they have, but they probably will do everything they can to not have you do that. So you probably should. You got to take a test.
Yep.
Sheet of paper.
Okay.
What do I do with your test?
Lost it.
I got a test out for you, and then I set it someplace, and I was moving around and doing things. And then William shows up. Oh, good. I knew I had this. Yeah.
So,
Let me start Emily on her test. Okay. 2 things. You do 1 to 20 in the margin and do it. That's supposed to be his. I don't know how it got to be history. And then only ID 2 of them. And then one of the other ones, just write a 1 sentence, just a basic, just say 1 sentence what the basic what it is.
Okay.
The big thing is so I know what it is. Wait, what, you got a question?
so,
Oh, I'm excited.
yeah, could I write my question down?
Oh yeah, okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And sorry, I just wasn't thinking. You won't get full, but I'll give you that one thing I'll give you today. You do right. I know you're really well. Yeah, you have 43. So you did social Darwinism in the Congo, and your other choices are Emily.
I guess God is kind of confused because I guess
It's Reasons for Imperialism, Berlin Congress, Scramble for Africa, Boer War.
I'm going board.
Hmm?
I'm going board on
Okay,
this.
you write it on the back.
Full board.
Just one good sentence and you got it. It's what it is.